Heavy Cav Regiments of Renown abound. The SKY-STRIDERS top their resplendent Albino Rhinos taken to the battlefields of patch 1.3 against the armies of Nurgle. This might be the only replay on the channel ever that showcases the shooting mechanics change, because it already got hotfixed out of the game permanently. Lead Belchers and Rhinox Cav versus an Exalted Plaguebearer Corps, Beasts of Nurgle, and the Barons of the Bog. Pretty dang good replay on the way, and for the Ogre Kingdoms, 3 Lead Belchers. They're shooting through Ogre Bulls in an overlap formation. They'll protect them quite nicely from flyers or enemy charges. Basically going to plot the monstrous infantry right in front of the artillery, so if Furies or Rotflies want to descend, they'll have to get through melee troops while getting blasted point blank. Might make them deaf, but won't be blowing out their spines with friendly fire at least, which I'm sure the Bulls are grateful for. 2 Man-Eaters, 1 Great Weapon, 1 Pistol, and a Slaughter Master of the Great Maw in the back with Bull Gorger, Bone Crusher, and Troll Guts for a nice mix of damage spells, healing, and support. Really, the stars of the show here are the SKY-STRIDER Rhinox Crushers, albino rhinos from the Pleistocene era with a ridiculous stat line, Frostbite, and innate missile resist that goes all the way up to 20. I cannot wait to try them out against factions like Bretonia, for example, but against Nurgle, they can be a fantastic tool for killing, well, just about anything, really. Got their work cut out for them here, though, because it's an elite Nurgle army with 3 Exalted Plaguebearers, and that core can take a serious beating and keep on trucking, and they don't care too much about cav charges either. Especially with those Festering Stooges, which are one of the tankiest infantry units in all of Mortal Empires. Festering Gate and Gloom of Flies Terror make them a strong linchpin of any Nurgle build, and they are just super hard to kill. Behind them come the new Regiment of Renown, vomiting Nurglings everywhere, the Barons of the Bog, which improve allied vigor and reduce enemy weapon damage in an AoE. So if you throw them where enemy melee damage is going to be fiercest, you can severely curtail your opponent's ability to fight in close quarters, and then stacking that on top of Poison, 2 Beasts of Nurgle, Rotflies, Plague Drones, and a Herald on his own stinking steed, focused on healing, debuffs, and support. So as we get this battle underway, just remember that the shooting change has already been hotfixed out of the game. You will no longer be able to do with Lead Belchers what you see here, but should be interesting nonetheless. The advantage to it, of course, is that you can put large units with high mass directly in front of your ranged troops and still be able to fire, protecting them better against units like Furies and Fleshhounds, which have already proven to be a menace in terms of hunting down a back line. Ogre shooting is very powerful. Lead Belcher cores can be quite devastating against infantry, and they certainly have some high-value foot troops to shoot at here. Exalted Plaguebearers are not fast, so they'll be exposed to these salvos for quite a long time on their long march in. It's where the Rotflies and Plague Drones come in. Their job is to try and silence those guns, at least long enough for the infantry to close in and start spreading disease, decay, and dastardly deeds, but those opening salvos have been pretty brutal. Exalted Plaguebearers already down at half HP, and an Albino Rhino ambush coming out of the trees. The SKY-STRIDERS with their great weapons should be able to bust through Nurglings no problem at all. One element you will notice with the shooting here is that Lead Belchers will often break up an enemy formation after the first volley, which means they deal big burst damage initially, and then they start shooting stragglers that were already blown out of formation, and their DPS will get a lot worse. I haven't tested it, but it might be better to switch targets frequently to let those units you're shooting at get back into calms before shooting at them again, especially against a faction like Nurgle, who can bring models back from death with healing. Now, this is bad. We're going to see a particularly egregious example of the whole not landing and attacking issue with those Rotflies and Plague Drones, but this is a weird one. No question, it still needs to be fixed. Once they land, they should engage, even if they can't get on the target you attack because something's in the way. But with that said, you are kind of asking for it if you're trying to attack a unit through monsters or monstrous infantry, because the flight path will take them straight into the unit up front, and then they're going to get stuck in the transition phase between landed and flying. We're seeing tons of death's heads on the Lead Belchers right now, but knowing that this exists, that the problem may stick around because of the existence of the land button, it is your responsibility as the player to spare a moment and check in on your flyers to make sure they are actually attacking. And believe me, when they are dry humping and not murdering, you can tell from very far away. So just something to keep in mind. And you can see here, the camera's pretty far away from the engagement, and you can tell those Plague Drones are not attacking Rotflies, which cost 900 gold. Not a devastating loss, but not a great one either. They've dealt pretty much 0 damage, and they're about to crumble out. But to be fair, they're also fighting Man-Eaters with great weapons now, which is not really where they want to be. So not a great start for Nurgle. We have seen some heals go forth. We saw the Fleshy Abundance on the Exalted Plaguebearers on their right flank. Pretty much got them back up to full health. Nice little Bone Crusher on the Exalted Plaguebearers on the Nurgle left flank, and that is a Bull Gorger on a 2100 gold elite cavalry unit that specializes in bonus versus large. So the Rotflies and Plague Drones over there, they need to disengage or they are going to melt away very quickly. Now the Lead Belchers are beginning to get swarmed here, but not a lot of fast movers or flyers that are able to dive in to the back line. No Furies in this Nurgle build. It's much more focused on that heavy, inexorable plotting forth. And as you'll see with a lot of Nurgle builds that center around the Barons of the Bog, they're going to blob around them, because you're essentially reducing weapon strength by 25% in a 35-meter radius, and where the blobs form, Death's Heads can punish those blobs, and you'll get some great value shooting into those SKY-STRIDERS. Even though they do have 20% missile resist, AP will still hurt them, and the higher your weapon strength, the more impactful that wasting sickness will be. Ogre Bulls doing what they can to push back these Exalted Plaguebearers, but they are not going to be able to beat Festering Stooges or regular Plaguebearers in melee combat. Maneaters will work a little bit better in CQB, and those are disgusting volleys from the Lead Belchers firing in from the flank, and finally that first unit they targeted at the beginning of the match, well, a Fleshy Abundance ain't gonna save them play, although it's actually going towards the Festering Stooges and not the unit that was about to crumble out. That would have actually been a huge loss for the Plague Father if those Exalted Plaguebearers that were already about to melt away had gotten the Fleshy Abundance sent their way. That would have been a huge waste of Winds of Magic, so not a bad play at all. Try to max out the Festering Stooges. The SKY-STRIDERS will ensure that the Herald atop his Rotfly stops annoying the back line, and we saw the Rotflies and the Plague Drones just thrown to the wolves. They really made no impact on the battle whatsoever. They were not utilized well, but a lot of that had to do with a fairly annoying bug that has existed since launch, so hopefully that will get fully addressed at some point. I know they have an event called Make War Not Love, but there does come a point where the dry humping just gets a tad bit ridiculous. Here comes the charge up the center. SKY-STRIDERS into the Festering Stooges, all Bull Gorgered up and ready to smish. The 120 armor, they could probably sit in there and trade pretty comfortably for a while, but the Barons of the Bog and Beasts of Nurgle are maybe a more pressing priority, so expect them to head elsewhere if they can't put them in the ground for good relatively soon. Fecundity Heal, combined with their innate regen, will make ending their existence a bit of a challenge, even for a Rhinox unit that's close to hitting the cap in melee attack after their charge. Lead Belchers have been monstrous thus far. They've devastated much of the Nurgle infantry, but the Herald has chased off at least one unit in the back of the map. Lots of reserves for the Ogres right now, not willing to commit to a massive blobfest against the Pox Riders and their wasting sickness, and of course the vigor improvements for the elite infantry in that fight as well. Double Beasts have made their way back towards the Albino Rhinos, letting their mass, slows, and AP towards what will be a pretty important engagement. Festering Stooges just will not die, and the Beasts are both full health while the Barons shut down an entire side of the battlefield. In fact, they are beating Maneater Grit Weapons in melee with the help of those Exalted Plaguebearers. That's honestly really impressive. They're bonus versus infantry, and they're performing that well against an anti-large troop. That's amazing for killing Cav. Yeah, they're doing a great job over on this flank, and they're really the only reason Nurgle's still in this game at this point. Nice heal as well. The support heals have been great for Nurgle thus far. Beast of Nurgle might have overstayed his welcome here. Slaughtermaster and the SKY-STRIDERS with a full surround, and this is just a really horrible spot for the poor little critter to be. Vomit all you like, my friend. I don't know, it's 144 weapon strength and I think 26, 24 bonus versus large. That's not counting the melee attack improvements they're getting from Bull Gorger. Miasma of Pestilence, slowing them down, preventing them from moving around too much, but a Beast of Nurgle is not a fast creature either. So Nurgle's best chance here is to push through on this side and finish off the rest of those Lead Belchers. But here comes a full HP Crusher Great Weapon unit, buffed up, backed up by the Slaughter Master. And even though Miasma of Pestilence will lower their defense and Curse of the Slug will slow down their speed. They're still exactly where they need to be, and even though that charge was a bit limp dick, they're still going to be able to get a bunch of their bad touch going the way of those Barons of the Bog, which is not a unit that can fight them well in melee combat. Saving grace for Nurgle, though, is that there's a 2/3 HP Exalted Plaguebearer in the middle of everything, and when you've got 120 models smacking on 120 armor, well, you're still going to be able to get a lot of damage going their way, and they've already used 1 Troll Guts on these SKY-STRIDERS, so they'll get close to the healing cap if any more heals are sent their way. Now, 1 Beast of Nurgle is about to crumble out completely. Maybe the 4th Fleshy Abundance from the Herald of Nurgle, this time going the way of the Exalted Plaguebearers. I don't think that unit has been healed yet. That's going to be pretty much maxed out in terms of health after that one. And the Herald doing a great job of finally silencing these lead belchers. And even though he doesn't have amazing melee stats, should be able to finish them off for good, and that will pretty much be the end of the shooting for the Ogre Kingdoms. 2nd Beast of Nurgle crumbling out while the Barons of the Bog run down the remnants of those lead belchers in the back of the map. I think they were actually very smart to get away from this engagement, but they have to return quickly now because the Exalted Plaguebearers alone will not be able to take down 120 armor Rhinox Crushers. So it's all led to this, one final climactic struggle. The Barons of the Bog finishing off 1 lead belcher unit. They're going to come in and reinforce the Herald next to the other one, although I think there's maybe only like a half volley left from that unit. SKY-STRIDERS are still by far the healthiest and most dangerous unit on the field. They're at half HP. I'm not sure that that Slaughtermaster has enough Winds of Magic, even with extra ingredients, to top them off with another Troll Gut. So what you see is probably what you get in terms of healing, besides maybe Locus of Fecundity. I don't know if there's another one of those casts. We shall see. Exalted Plaguebearers are pretty healthy too, and what looked like a pretty convincing Ogre win at the mid stages of this battle has kind of shifted back, and a lot of it has to do with just the absurd healing Nurgle can put out. You think their units are dead, you think they're going to crumble out, and then they're back in the fight still grinding, and that has been a problem. But we do have another Troll Guts going the way of the SKY-STRIDERS, and that's potentially game-changing. After all this fighting and all this killing, they have only lost 2 models, and now they're pretty much going to be topped off in this last drag-it-out fight, which in many ways would favor Nurgle, right? The Barons of the Bog and their Wasting Sickness and their Vigor Reduction, huge deal in these kind of engagements as a Bone Crusher comes down from the Slaughtermaster, killed a few Exalted Plaguebearers. But Nurgle doesn't really have an answer to the SKY-STRIDERS right now. They don't have direct damage spells. They don't have anything to do with them except slow them and debuff their weapon strength. And even with a 25% Wasting Sickness debuff, they're still hitting at the weapon strength of Gorgers before you factor in their bonus for Slorge and the Bull Gorgers that are counteracting everything else. So, yeah, I mean, the Barons of the Bog, they were so tanky and incredible all game long, but it was asking too much of them to deal with these Rhinox Crushers in the late game, and they're gone. They've evaporated. That will leave the Exalted Plaguebearers on an island with the Herald and no more heals going their way. Ogres have lost a lot here, but their most important unit, those SKY-STRIDERS, now with the full surround off on the Rotfly and the Herald to top it, and that is going to be his doom. Dismember to slow his speed and acceleration. There's no way for him to disengage now. Slaughtermaster ensuring his demise by pinning him in place, and soon this demonic army will crumble out and rejoin Nurgle in his Grand Garden in the Warp. Great showing from those Pleistocene Albino Rhinos. They were fantastic. They killed a bunch of infantry. They killed the Barons of the Bog. They killed the Lord. They got great damage value. I don't know why it says Lazargs. I have no idea what that is, because that is not the name of this sub-faction. I don't even remember what the name of the sub-faction actually is. But yeah, Slaughtermaster supported them great. The Bull Gorgers and Troll Guts going their way all battle long, ensured they got the value they needed. Lead Belchers were fantastic. 2,500 damage value. 1,500 on those, firing through their own bulls. Obviously keeps them online for longer, and you won't be seeing that anymore because it's patched out, but quite powerful for the couple seconds it was loud. 3,000 damage value on the SKY-STRIDERS. You will be seeing a lot of them, even if they don't end up being meta in terms of multiplayer, just because they're so exorbitantly expensive at 2,100 gold. They're so much fun to use. They are a good unit, and against factions like Bretonia or Chaos, I can see them having pretty powerful niche in some of those matchups where you want to kill enemy cavalry and big monsters. And if they get a full surround off on your Lewin on Bakies or something, say goodnight, dude. They're just straight up dead. Now, on the Nurgle side, Barons of the Bog were amazing. Every time I've seen them so far, they have impressed me. That Wasting Sickness is an incredible debuff. Festering Stooges are just so tanky, and the Exalted Plaguebearers across the board, except for the one that just got demolished by that focus fire, were great. Now, the Rotflies and the Plague Drones, you gotta pay more attention to them. They are susceptible to that bug. You gotta make sure they're not dry humping and they're actually attacking whatever you send them into. But yeah, when you have a unit directly in front of another one, that bug is more likely to occur if their charge is interrupted by the mass in front. So just pay attention to that, and you can make sure that it doesn't happen to you. If you see it, just pull them out, recharge again, you should be good. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time.